Socialism. You hear this word thrown around all the time, right? It's got to be one of the most debated words on the planet. But what does it actually mean? Well, in this explainer, we're going to strip away all the politics, all the headlines, and just get to the core idea, what it is, what it's trying to do, and how it actually shows up in the world today.
So let's just ask the question head on. What does socialism actually mean? For the next few minutes, let's try to ignore all the political noise and just break it down. The textbook definition, its main goals, and where you can actually see its principles at work in the modern world. Okay, let's start with the absolute basics, the definition. To really get a handle on socialism, we first need a super clear picture of what it is at its economic core. So this is the classic textbook definition, right? The central idea here is that the things that create a society's wealth, we're talking factories, big farms, utilities, that kind of stuff, they aren't owned by private individuals. Instead, they're owned by the community as a whole, which, let's be honest, is almost always managed through the government or the state.
So how does that actually play out in real life? Well, it all starts with that community ownership that gives the state control over the key industries. The wealth that gets generated from all that is then supposed to be distributed more evenly, mainly to fund essential public services that everyone can access, things like healthcare and education. The whole point, the ultimate goal behind this structure is to reduce economic inequality.
All right, so that pretty much covers the what, but it's just as important to understand the why. What's the real motivation behind this kind of economic structure? And maybe just as important, what are the potential trade-offs? And this chart really brings us to the core difference in priorities. In a purely capitalist system, the whole engine is driven by individual profit. But in socialism, the focus totally shifts to social welfare, the well-being of the entire community. It's a fundamental change in what the economy is even designed to do. But, and this is a big but, there's a pretty well-known trade-off. A really common critique is that when the state has this much control, it can end up stifling the very things that make a market economy hum: innovation and efficiency. Without that intense competition for profit, things can really slow down. So this tension, this back and forth between social welfare and market efficiency brings us to a super crucial point. In the real world, pure capitalism and pure socialism are incredibly rare. You almost never see them. Instead, most modern economies have actually evolved into something else entirely, a hybrid model. And this is a really key insight if you want to understand the world today. Most countries that get labeled socialist are actually mixed economies. They aren't trying to get rid of markets altogether. No, instead, they're attempting to blend the community-first principles of socialism with the powerful economic engine of capitalism. So what does that balancing act look like in practice? Well, on one side, you have market freedom. Private businesses are totally encouraged to thrive, to innovate, and to compete. But on the other side, the government uses the wealth generated by that market to build a really strong social safety net. We're talking funding huge social programs for every single citizen. The ultimate goal here is to find that sweet spot, that perfect balance. The idea is to harness all the power and efficiency of a market economy and then use the wealth it creates to pay for the social programs that lead to a more equitable society. Things like universal healthcare and education. It's really a search for the best of both worlds. Now, theory is one thing, but where can we actually see this hybrid model in action? Let's take a look at some real-world examples that get brought up all the time. A perfect example is the Scandinavian model. You look at countries like Sweden and Norway. They have thriving, super competitive market economies, but here's the key difference. They use high taxes to fund massive public programs. We're talking universal healthcare and tuition-free education all the way through university, and it's available to every single citizen. And the result of all that is a really strong social safety net. It creates a society where people still have the freedom of the market, but they're also protected from, say, financial ruin because of medical bills or being locked out of higher education. This is that hybrid model in action. Okay, so let's pull it all together. What are the key takeaways? At its core, socialism prioritizes the welfare of the community to try and reduce inequality. But the most crucial takeaway for understanding the modern world is that it almost never exists in its pure form anymore. Instead, it's all about the hybrid, blending a strong social safety net with a dynamic market economy. Which leaves us with the final, really thought-provoking question that sits at the very heart of this entire discussion. In this ongoing debate between economic efficiency and social equity, is there such a thing as a perfect balance? Or is the search for that balance the very thing that's going to keep shaping our societies for generations to come?